Carolyn Doobie here. What's the play for today? Well, today's play is all about the 3-second rule. Now, the 3-second rule is when I can't make a decision and I can feel myself really getting stuck, I give myself 3 seconds to make a decision and move on. Well, 3 seconds is not a lot of time when you're trying to figure out the right answer. So I was trying to decide which art journal do I want to work in today, because I have a bunch of them and I couldn't pick. So I gave myself 3 seconds. And at the end of that 3 seconds, I said, I want to work on a canvas. So I go and I look at my canvases, and guess what? Can't decide which one I want to use there either. So I give myself 3 seconds and I look at them, and 3 seconds are up and I have to pick, and I just went, I'm just going to use the paper on the counter. So that's what I'm going to do, and this was just the first round of the 3-second rule that I had to apply. It's going to show up again as I'm playing around with some stencils. The 3-second rule is back all ready for me because I couldn't decide which of the castle towers here, these masks that come with part of my Once Upon a Time stencil from StencilGirl, I couldn't decide which of these I wanted to use. So rather than stay stuck, I decided I was going to give myself all of 3 seconds. And in that time, I decided I'm going to use them all. Rather than pick one, I'm just going to go with them all. So now I need to use all of these masks as I'm playing. Now, all the paints that I'm using, yeah, I didn't have any trouble at all picking colors because I pretty much picked them all. I said, I'll take the rainbow for this. Now, at the beginning of this play, I was pretty much in my head and I was trying to make the right decision, the good decision, all that kind of stuff. And now I'm pretty much on a roll. It is just grab and stencil, grab and stencil. Now, as I'm doing this, the paint is building up a wee bit on these masks, so there is something that I can do for that. I can take them and just flip them onto an art journal page and then transfer any of the excess paint from those. I can brayer it, I can rub it, however I want to do, but that way the paint is actually taken off of the mask, so it's not going to build up on there, and I've got a start to an art journal page that I can use whenever I want down the road. So now it's just a matter of putting more layers on there. I'm having a good time doing it. I'm not thinking. I don't need my 3-second rule for this. I am just grabbing and putting them on there until all of the space is filled up. Now at some point I realized I haven't used much of the yellow, so I decided I would grab some of that and fill in different areas with a bit of that yellow. That way yellow didn't feel too neglected in this process. Well, then I started thinking again. I couldn't decide which color I wanted to use to do some of the roofs and that kind of thing. So once again, 3 seconds, I had to make a decision, and I ended up going with the color black. Now this color really wasn't my first choice. I didn't even think about it until my 3 seconds were up, and then I sort of blurted it out to myself, and then I had to go with it. And by the way, I think that was just the choice I needed to make right there because I'm really happy with how the black turned out. Now the 3-second rule, which you've seen has been very, very helpful today to keep the play going, is just one of the ways that I've rediscovered how to play. And I share some of the other ways in my free workshop called Permission to Play. Yeah, you can guess why it's called that, right? Which is available over on my website at acolorfuljourney.com. Now in the video, we're about to get to the part where you should do as I say, not as I do, because I've got lots and lots of wet paint on here and I don't like to wait for things to dry. But once I've got the black outlines, I want to get some journaling on there. So what I'm doing is kind of searching for dry places where I want to use my pen. Because I know from a whole lot of experience that if the paint's wet and I'm going to put a pen through it, I'm probably going to destroy the pen. Now, I don't want to destroy the pens, but I also don't want to wait for everything to be completely dry. So that's where I found the middle ground. So I just keep looking for places where it's dry by just rubbing my finger against it, and if it's dry, then I'm comfortable putting the writing in there. But I didn't check this time, and yep, you bet, wet paint. So I immediately got that off of the tip of the pen, that way it doesn't do any damage. And I am then going to be a little more picky about where I put the writing because I want to make sure that it's dry. Because again, wet paint on a pen is not going to get you anywhere good with the pen. Well, I've decided I'm going to start writing in the white spaces for a little while to give the rest of the paint time to dry. Now the white I know I'm completely safe in because there's no paint on that whatsoever. Now all the pens you're seeing me use here are all Pitt pens by Faber-Castell, and they're the black India ink in various tip sizes. So I've used the brushed, I've used the fine one, and I'll have links to everything over on the blog for you. But as I'm filling in the open areas here, I really kept wanting to write at an angle or slant. And it finally dawned on me that I rarely ever write completely vertically. I like to have my paper turned a little bit. So at some point I wised up and I realized I can just kind of turn the paper that I'm working on, and that way it'll be much easier for me to write in a straight line across. That also gave me an opportunity to switch to an even finer point pen, but you bet I am making sure I stay in the white areas. There are a couple reasons for that. One is I know that I'm going to get lost in what I'm doing and not really make sure that I'm on only dry paint. And putting your pen through wet paint, well, that's a really quick way to ruin it. The other thing is that the smaller the tip of the pen gets, the finer the point, the faster the paint seems to impact it. So earlier in this play, you saw me get a bunch of wet paint on more of a brush tip. Now, it's not good to get wet paint on your pen at all, but the brush tips are more forgiving because you can quickly get it wiped off. The more you get to a finer point, a finer tip, there's a lot less forgiveness with it, and any wet paint on those fine tips will very quickly ruin a pen. And even when the paint is completely dry, sometimes even the residue on the paints, whatever it is in the paint, even when it's dry, can sometimes still clog up any fine tip pen. So that's why for this one, I am working really hard to stay right in the white area because I don't want to damage my pen at all. So now you know why I chose the brush tip to start with when I was writing over the paint, because the brush tips can take a little more abuse than the finer tip. But one thing that if you want to prolong the life of your brush tip, if you're going to do these kinds of things where you're going to kind of really put it through its paces and make it work extra hard, is as soon as you're done using the pen on paint, you want to go and write it on a piece of scrap paper or something clean so that you can get any of the paint residue, any of those types of things that might have collected up on the tip. Go ahead and clean those off. That way they don't linger on your pen. Well, I hope you find that these tips about using pens in your art journaling or your mixed media art helpful. Of course, if you've enjoyed this, you know I'd so appreciate that thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more of my videos, learning more of my tips and tricks, then hit that subscribe button. That way you'll know as soon as I have a new video out. And of course, head on over to acolorfuljourney.com for more fun, including that free workshop, Permission to Play. Thanks so much for letting me be a part of your colorful journey.